Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. What is it with people getting luxury cars and not insuring them? How dumb can you be? Let's start our video with the story in which our OP had to deal with a crazy lady in a Lexus. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss a new video every single day. Lady in the Lexus is going ballistic. A while ago, I was in my partner's new Ute and was in the parking garage at the local mall. I needed to reverse as I wasn't parked straight in the spot, so I backed up a tiny bit. I had, of course, checked my mirrors, etc. before doing so. Next thing I hear is a bump, so I stopped. Then there was a grind that went on for a good 5 seconds. I got out, and here's this Lexus with the entire side crumpled from the back to the front passenger door. Here I was freaking out that I'd just killed the Ute my partner had only had a week, and he was going to kill me for messing up his new car. Thankfully, it was just a cracked reflector that to this day we never bothered to replace. Anywho, lady in the Lexus gets out and just goes ballistic at me for backing into her car and totaling it. I tried to tell her that as soon as I heard the bump, I stopped, and I didn't know how all the damage happened. She was having none of it. Thankfully, there was a lady that had come back to her car a few spaces over that saw the whole thing. The Lexus driver had reversed back past my car just as I was pulling out of the parking lot, and when I bumped her and stopped, she kept reversing. She'd gotten caught on the tow ball, and that's what did all the damage to her car. The nice lady gave me her details and said she'd give a statement to my insurance to say it was the Lexus driver's fault for all the damage. My insurance company declared that it was indeed the Lexus driver's fault, and since I didn't put in a claim for the reflector, my insurance rating wasn't affected. Didn't stop the Lexus driver from harassing me for months trying to get me to admit fault so she could get her car fixed. She didn't have insurance either. It got to the point where she was calling me every day, and it got to the point where I had to get my insurance company to call her to tell her she was out of luck and to not call me again or they would involve the police. Fun times. And our second story. They must be my leaves on my curb? As you wish. The leaf collection company for my neighborhood has absurdly strict rules about where leaves must be for pickup. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac, so my curb is curved and pretty short, about 30 feet or 9 meters long. My property's wedge-shaped, so my backyard is quite long, 200 feet, 60 meters, and has 40 to 50 oak trees. I also have 2 sugar maples in my front yard, so leaves, lots of leaves. The pickup rules state leaves must be within 5 feet of the curb, but on the road. They must also be at least 15 feet from a mailbox. Because subscriptions for leaf pickup are by individual homeowner, neighbors are not allowed to combine leaves and cannot buy a group subscription. Subscribers must only put their leaves from the current year out for pickup. Pickup trucks use GPS to identify homes who have signed up and ignore leaves in front of homes that did not sign up. Because I have so many leaves and so little curb, only 15 feet of available curb due to the required distance from a mailbox, I called the leaf collection company and asked them to put the leaves along a longer curb I share with my neighbor. No problem, they said. Great. The truck came through and picked up a fraction of the pile and left the rest of the pile the driver decided was in front of my neighbor's property. I called the company back and a different person said, "Those are the rules. I'll just have to figure it out." Fine. Now it's on. I have 15 feet of width and 5 feet of depth. There is, however, no limit on height. I moved the remaining leaves to my available curb space. I collected the rest of my leaves and added them to the pile. I spoke with my neighbors and acquired the rights to their leaves by paying them $1 each. Now they're all my leaves. I shoveled, swept the leaves off the streets. They went on the pile. I collected the purchased leaves from the neighbors. They went on the pile. Leaves continued to fall, so I kept adding them. It was a lot of work, but the pile was over 12 feet tall. I spent a ton of time using a snow shovel to fling the leaves to the top of that pile that was more than 5 feet above my head. Neighborhood residents stopped to gape at the epic leaf mound. I'm happy to battle willful ignorance. I reminded myself of this every time I spent another hour tending to the obscenity on my curb. The truck came today. The pile dwarfed the truck. They had to drive away and dump leaves, then come back and reload. Twice. Thank you for all your hard work to produce this epic story. Extra points for going the legal mile to make neighbors leave your leaves. 5 stars. And our last story. How we disbanded the HOA board. I bought my home in 2001 in a 42-home community. We bought right after 9/11, and we picked the community because the HOA fees were very low at just $51. It wasn't long after we bought the last home in the community. We got a sweet deal because of this, and business had really slowed right after 9/11 before those dues started going up. I was 22 at the time. Looking into the financial reports and into the meetings, it became clear why the dues were going up. The board was a little fiefdom set up by the developers of the homes. Our management company was a subsidiary corporation of the home builder, and the board members were a combination of one of the home developers and 2 of the very first home purchasers in the community, a 3-person board. The first action the board took was the increase in funds was to remove trees that were not even on the HOA's property. They were trees that sat in an area the HOA had access to for weed abatement. These trees' real crime was not that they were weeds, it was that they blocked the nice view of the board's president and vice president. At the same time, the bullcrap violation letters started going out to about half the homes. You aren't mowing enough. You aren't watering enough. Every petty thing you can think of, they were issuing warning letters and starting to fine homeowners. Cue revenge time after getting one of those letters myself about weed abatement. Ironically, it was researching the community's CC&Rs about weed abatement that led me to realize the trees that were cut were not on HOA property, and it was researching the annual budget that led me to finding out the huge weed abatement expense that was actually the community's funds being spent to remove trees solely for the 2 board members' homeowners' views. I then found out that in California, all anyone needs to initiate a recall of the entire board and install a new one if successful was the signatures of 5% of homeowners delivered to the current board. That's a total of 3 houses in a 42-home community. The board was issued a recall notice not 48 hours after I'd found out about the law, delivered to the management company in person. Ironically, the home builder's corporate office was in the exact same building as the management company. You'd think they would have wanted to not make their association so obvious, but hey, it was 2002. This is also when I found out that the management company basically had the entire board in its pocket because they dragged their feet with the recall vote. They set it as far out as they could by law in the middle of the day. Instead of holding it in the community like all board meetings, they set the place at a local park a couple of miles away. They thought they were so brilliant doing this. So me and my wife put together a proxy voting form for the election, and we went to every door in our community. We told them what was happening with their money, their plans to create an architecture committee that would require all homeowners to get approvals for any additions or changes, everything. It took us 3 rounds around the neighborhood, plus a couple extra visits to homes that had not answered initially. In the end, me and my wife had 26 revocable proxies for the election. For those unfamiliar with proxies, it basically gave me and my wife the power to cast that homeowner's vote for them, if and only if they didn't show up to the election. The thoughtless board and management company actually made it easier for us to collect the proxies because a lot of homeowners flat out could not make the time and place of the meeting. The recall day finally arrives, the current board members are all there, the management company representative is there, and 8 other homeowners showed up to the meeting, 6 of whom we had proxies for and which were revoked by their attendance. They opened the meeting and started saying something about, "Oh, looks like a waste of money, there isn't a quorum, blah, blah, blah." I then said, "I'm sorry, but we do have a quorum." They're like, no, you need 22 homeowners here and there's only 12. The 3 board members, me and wifey, and the 8 others that showed up. And that's when I pulled out the trump card. I dropped all 26 proxies on the bench table everyone was sitting at and said, "I'm sorry, but there are more than 30 homeowners present," and pointed out the math. After subtracting the 6 homeowners that had showed up, we had 20 additional proxy votes that counted for both quorum and voting purposes. They all got wide-eyed, most especially the management company representative. He came over and looked at the forms very closely and compared it against a list of the homeowners. Even the people that were there and on our side did not realize how much work we'd done to ensure the bullcrap ended there and now. The recall meeting was open. The board members voted not to recall, plus their 3 friends that were on their side, the other homeowners present voted to recall, and the vote stood at 6-6, tied. I then stood and declared that we were voting our 20 valid proxy votes to recall the entire board. Recall passed, 26 votes to 6. Next vote, who replaces the board members? It ended up becoming me and wifey and another homeowner that had voted for recall and was willing to take the seat. We elected ourselves to the board seats by a vote of 26-6. It was at this point that the management company then stated that Canon Management was immediately resigning as the management company for the community. I then pulled out the HOA's management contract, which clearly stated that either side needed to give 3 months' notice to effect resignation, and stated that we, the new board, accepted their resignation and set an end date for their services 3 months later. The management guy was nuclear pissed off. I, a 22-year-old at the time, had beaten them at their game, and I had prepared for their possible quitting shenanigan. We replaced the management company after a couple months, having had proper time to find and vet an independent company, at about half the cost, no less. Did the same with the gardening services, which was also a home builder affiliated company, also at about half the cost. The old president of the HOA put his home up for sale about a month later after we rescinded all the old violations and issued a notice to the old board members that we intended to vote on whether they had committed fraud against the association over their weed abatement tree removal action. I still vividly remember walking over to Dale's house, the old president, the day he was moving and giving him a big wave goodbye as he was getting into the car to follow his moving truck. He gave me the finger as he drove out. Definitely one of the proudest moments in my life. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.